The Art of the Steal: How Republicans Have Mastered Election Theft. For decades, American democracy has been under siege, not from external forces, but from within. At 43, I've lived through enough election cycles to see a clear pattern. The Republican Party has consistently undermined the will of the people, stealing elections through a combination of gerrymandering, voter suppression, dark money, and outright manipulation. From Al Gore in 2000 to John Kerry in 2004 to Kamala Harris in 2024, the GOP has perfected what can only be described as the art of the steal, a playbook that ensures their candidates seize power, even when the voters choose otherwise. Donald Trump's book may be called The Art of the Deal, but his true legacy is the art of rigging democracy itself. The stolen election of 2000, Al Gore's rightful victory. The 2000 presidential election was a turning point in American history, a moment when the GOP's election theft tactics were laid bare for the world to see. Al Gore, the Democratic candidate, won the national popular vote by over 500,000 votes. In Florida, the state that would decide the presidency, the margin was razor thin, 537 votes to be exact. But what unfolded in Florida was not a fair recount, but a masterclass in Republican manipulation. The GOP, led by then-Governor Jeb Bush and Secretary of State Katherine Harris, orchestrated a campaign to halt the recount process. Harris, a co-chair of George W. Bush's Florida campaign, purged thousands of voters, disproportionately black and Democratic, from the rolls, citing felon status, even when many had no criminal record. Faulty voting machines in Democratic strongholds like Palm Beach County produced butterfly ballots that confused voters, leading to thousands of votes being misallocated or discarded. When Gore demanded a recount, the Bush campaign flooded the state with operatives staging the infamous Brooks Brothers riot to intimidate election officials. The final blow came from the U.S. Supreme Court, stacked with Republican-appointed justices in Bush vs. Gore. The court halted Florida's recount, handing the presidency to Bush. Most heartbreaking was the moment when Al Gore, presiding over the Senate as vice president, was forced to gavel down Democratic senators who sought to challenge Florida's electoral votes. Without a single Republican senator willing to co-sign their objections, the challenges were dismissed. The will of the people, Gore's clear popular vote victory, was ignored. The presidency was stolen. 2004, John Kerry's victory undermined. 4 years later, the GOP struck again. John Kerry, the Democratic nominee, faced George W. Bush in a tightly contested election. Ohio, a pivotal swing state, became the epicenter of Republican malfeasance. Reports of voter suppression were rampant, long lines in Democratic precincts due to insufficient voting machines, mysterious purges of voter rolls, and provisional ballots that were never counted. In one notorious case, a caging operation targeted minority voters, challenging their registrations based on minor discrepancies like undelivered mail. Even more troubling were allegations of electronic vote tampering. Ohio used Diebold voting machines, whose CEO, a Bush donor, had publicly promised to deliver the state for Bush. Post-election analyses showed statistically improbable vote shifts in key counties, with Bush gaining votes in areas where exit polls heavily favored Kerry. Yet, despite these red flags, Kerry conceded quickly, pressured by a media narrative that dismissed fraud allegations as conspiracy theories. The voters' choice, Kerry, was once again overridden by GOP tactics. 2024, Kamala Harris and the MAGA machine. Fast forward to 2024, and the Republican playbook has only grown more sophisticated. Kamala Harris, running against Donald Trump, galvanized voters with a message of hope and progress. Polls showed her leading in key battlegrounds, and voter turnout in Democratic strongholds was historic. Yet when the dust settled, Trump was declared the winner, a result that defied logic and left millions questioning the integrity of the process. The MAGA movement, now a well-funded, highly organized machine, played a central role. Billionaires like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel poured unprecedented sums into dark money groups, bankrolling efforts to challenge voter registrations en masse. In states like Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin, MAGA operatives filed thousands of challenges to Democratic voters' registrations, exploiting technicalities, a middle name listed as an initial, a maiden name versus a married name, or a change of address not yet updated. Each challenge could disqualify a ballot, and with individuals challenging thousands of voters daily, the scale was staggering. In Georgia alone, over 100,000 voters faced challenges, overwhelmingly in Democratic-leaning cities like Atlanta. Gerrymandering further tilted the playing field. Republican-controlled state legislatures have redrawn district maps with surgical precision, packing Democratic voters into a few urban districts while spreading Republican voters across multiple suburban and rural ones. This ensures GOP candidates win disproportionate seats in state legislatures and Congress, even when Democrats win the popular vote. In 2024, gerrymandered maps in states like Texas and North Carolina diluted the power of millions of voters, rendering their ballots effectively meaningless. Then there's the issue of election machines. Reports of irregularities with electronic voting systems surfaced in 2024, particularly in swing states. Machines in Democratic precincts mysteriously malfunctioned, forcing voters to use provisional ballots that were later discarded. Cybersecurity experts raised alarms about vulnerabilities in voting software, yet Republican officials dismissed calls for audits. The lack of transparency fueled suspicions that the fix was in, again. The broader strategy, disenfranchisement by design. These individual elections, 2000, 2004, 2024, are not isolated incidents but part of a broader Republican strategy to disenfranchise voters and subvert democracy. Gerrymandering is perhaps the most insidious tool. By manipulating district boundaries, Republicans have created safe seats that guarantee their dominance, even in states where Democrats outnumber them. A 2018 study by the Brennan Center for Justice found that gerrymandering gave Republicans a structural advantage in at least 16 states, disenfranchising millions of voters. Voter suppression tactics are equally brazen. Strict voter ID laws, felony disenfranchisement, and cuts to early voting disproportionately target Black, Latino, and young voters, core Democratic constituencies. In 2021, Georgia's GOP-led legislature passed a law criminalizing the act of giving water to voters waiting in line, a direct response to high turnout in Atlanta's Black communities. These measures, combined with mass voter purges and challenges, create a system where Democratic votes are systematically erased. Dark money fuels this machine. The Supreme Court's 2010 Citizens United decision opened the floodgates for billionaires to pour unlimited funds into elections, often through opaque super PACs. In 2024, groups tied to tech moguls and oil barons bankrolled voter suppression efforts, spread disinformation, and funded legal challenges to election results. This financial firepower gives Republicans an edge that no grassroots campaign can match: the human cost of stolen elections. The consequences of these stolen elections are profound. In 2000, Al Gore's defeat paved the way for the Iraq War, tax cuts for the wealthy, and a rollback of environmental protections. In 2004, Bush's second term deepened America's quagmire in the Middle East and exacerbated economic inequality. In 2024, Kamala Harris's loss has ushered in a second Trump administration, threatening reproductive rights, climate action, and democratic norms. For voters, the impact is personal. When your vote is suppressed, your voice is silenced. When districts are gerrymandered, your community is fractured. When billionaires rig the system, your faith in democracy erodes. At 43, I've never seen a Republican president win fairly. Every GOP presidency in my lifetime has been marred by allegations of fraud, suppression, or manipulation. The will of the people, my will, your will, has been stolen time and again, breaking the cycle. The Republican Party's grip on power relies on one thing: our complacency. To reclaim democracy, we must fight back. Demand an end to gerrymandering through independent redistricting commissions. Push for federal voting rights legislation to protect every citizen's ballot. Support organizations like Fair Fight and the ACLU, which challenge voter suppression in court, and hold elected officials accountable, Democrats and Republicans alike, for failing to safeguard our elections. The GOP's art of the steal is not invincible. It thrives in the shadows, but sunlight is the best disinfectant. By exposing their tactics, mobilizing voters, and reforming the system, we can ensure that the will of the people prevails. Al Gore won, John Kerry won, Kamala Harris won. It's time to stop the steal and restore the promise of American democracy. By Scott Young, aka Sin Famous Gamer.